Hey, Dan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast, it's Critical Blast.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish. They're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to Kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Well, hello, Wednesday Whammers. I'm hosting tonight, so God help us all. And I
keep it together.
Yes, and I just learned all the administrative junk behind the scenes. So if I punch a wrong button, forgive me. Welcome. I see we've already got an audience here. We have Cool Gamer. Hi, Cool Gamer. Hi, everybody. Vic, of course.
Of course.
Vic,
I like how Roland got ahead of it. I got a drop on him.
And Royal Airship, he's also, we can always count on him too. Tonight's we're going to talk about turning a regular book, literary book, into comics. How successful, how unsuccessful that can be, and our favorite ones. Now, I know that the first thing that people are going to jump to is saying, "Oh, Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein," which you have. However, caveat: this is a written book. He did illustrations for it. He did illustrations for it, but it's not a graphic novel. This
doesn't have sequentials in it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just illustrated pages for a written book. So something like this does not count. It's got to be all art. Every page has to have art on it. And I'm sure that if any of you have been around long enough, everybody remembers the Classics Illustrated from when we were kids. And that ran for, oh my God, years. It started, I think, in 1941 and ran up through 78, something like that. So it ran for
That's
a
a
very
long time.
That is a long time. I mean, they didn't put it out often, but still, they managed to cover a lot of ground. You know, they covered like The Last of the Mohicans and Beowulf, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and they covered a lot of that. So I would think that was pretty much the first instances of turning classic literature into funny pictures.
Of course, there's an adaptation of the Bible that was done in the comic book form as well.
Yeah.
That sold for many years. I think it's probably still out there.
Oh, it's
available.
still out there,
That's Sergi, though, isn't it?
And it's actually, I think that's the best-selling
Is it the action
comic
not the
of
action,
all time.
Sergio did the action Bible.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was good.
So we got, this should be useful for my Sweeney Todd thing. Oh, Vic's going to do Sweeney Todd. Hi, Adam. Hi, Vic. Hi, Vic. All right. So I'm going to I'll start off with one of my favorites. And when I was working for Innovation back in the 90s, they happened to be doing the book adaptation of Interview with a Vampire.
Oh yeah.
And I tell you, the art, and I'm gonna try one of my funny buttons here. That was not the right button. Okay. The art in this thing is just stunningly gorgeous. It was done by Derek Gross.
Oh yeah. Good old Derek.
Yes, and all of his stuff is just gorgeous. I highly recommend this book to anybody who loves Anne Rice's stuff. And we're going to go back. All right. There we go. I hit the right button this time. This is probably one of the, if you like painted stuff, he did this all in like watercolors.
Ooh.
And it is just stunning.
Anybody who can do that in watercolor, man, that is like one of the most difficult things.
I think it's watercolor and pastels. It's multimedia, but the effects that he gets, he's got a lot of like where you start with black pages and he does like white and blue on black pages. It's gorgeous. There's watercolor, there's pastels, chalk maybe. It's multimedia to get the effect that he's going for. One of the best adaptations I have ever seen. I'm sure you can find it on Amazon. Almost everything that we're talking about tonight, I've seen on Amazon. How about you, Rory?
Well, so you want my full list, or you want me to just give one of them?
Well, you can just start off and talk for a while.
Okay. I find it.
And tell us why you like them.
And why? So Steam Patriots was first a book. We actually have a novel version of it first before adapting it to.
Do you? I did not know that.
Yeah, I think Scott got up to 30,000 words, maybe 40,000 words. He did it for a NaNoWriMo and double dipped and used it for his creative writing degree. So he actually had time to work on it, and it just panned out. So we had it first. And then we had sat on it for a while before realizing like steampunk is just so visual, we have to use it for a graphic novel. So that obviously tops my list, but I am a little preferential. I've seen, actually, I think we read it in high school, Edgar Allan Poe, Mask of the Red Death.
Ooh.
Because every room was a different color, so it lended well to a monochromatic, this section, and it just progressed through. And that was really well done. As far as I can remember, it's one of those things like an old movie you watch, you're like, oh, that was a great movie. And you watch again as an adult and you're like, that was horrible.
Mask of the Red Death, isn't that kind of very grim too?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was.
And you said you read it in high school?
Mm-hmm. It was the suspenseful build, that classic Poe, build to the end, and then finally, something happens. I've seen a whole lot of graphic novels for Edgar Allan Poe, probably because it lends well to the suspense building.
Not only that, but I mean, it's also in the public domain, isn't
Yes,
it?
that's true.
Which
Yeah,
is
a lot
why
of it
you
Yes.
is.
which is
yeah,
why you
that
see
stuff's in
so
public domain,
many
yeah.
adaptations of
The classics.
anything by Edgar Rice Burroughs and
Hmm.
who wrote Sherlock Holmes again? Arthur Conan Doyle.
Arthur Conan Doyle, yep.
Sir,
Sir,
Arthur.
sorry. Yeah, anything in the public domain, you'll see
Yeah,
all kinds
massive
of it.
amounts. And
Yes.
there's a lot of great stuff out there, and a lot of really horrible stuff out there.
Well, yeah, that's that's the old rule about 90% of everything being
Big crap.
CRAP,
Yeah.
crap.
I know.
So, yeah.
Pride and Prejudice has been done to death in graphic novel form. Marvel even did it.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
I know it's been done in anime. I know
That would be interesting. I haven't seen that one.
Uh,
I love when they
Camp-
did like Pride and
Campfire.
Prejudice and zombies.
oh yes, that was a strict adaptation. However,
Oh yeah, very.
Campfire Press did a really, really good adaptation of that with Lawrence Sack adapted it, and
Mhm.
Rajesh. Let me see here. Nagula Kand. I can't. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it was a really good adaptation. But it's been done a lot of different times, just like
Yes.
Dracula.
Dracula. Yep.
Dracula.
The Wolfman has been done 100 times in the movies. You know, everybody's got their own take on it. How many times has Frankenstein been done? Penny Dreadful. You know, mixing them all together. That's. I guess Penny Dreadfuls were the first adaptations, weren't they?
Were
Yes.
they?
Yeah, because they were the first like fanfic. I don't know if they were entirely illustrated, but they had to be partly illustrated.
Vix asks,
Yeah,
do you guys remember?
the actual Penny Dreadfuls were are like the pulp era. It's precursors to the pulp stuff. So it was illustrated. Probably didn't have sequential art.
Well, yeah, I was going
sequential
to say
art
it was
Yeah.
probably like
yeah,
Chapter.
Frankenstein, where it had illustrations
Yeah,
and text.
yeah. Sometimes they would have maybe 2 or 3 panels, but it would not be
Mm.
a whole
Yeah.
thing like that.
Yeah,
It's like
sequential.
cartoon strips didn't really start until the late 1800s.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that would be in the same era, but I don't think they were doing anything in that format
I
at
think
that point. That would be interesting to see stuff if they had.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting.
Penny Dreadfuls were probably the precursor to comics and graphic novels. Wouldn't you
Yes.
say?
Yeah, them and
Yeah.
political cartoons. I mean, those were 1 or 2
Yeah,
panels.
and
Political
pulp
cartoons went
magazines,
back as far as politics, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
There's,
yeah.
I think there's stuff inscribed in stone for
yes.
political.
I think it's so funny.
Hieroglyphics. Yeah, there's probably hieroglyphics and
I'm sure they found stones over in the Holy Land during excavations, like sling stones, and it's like "Death from Above" inscribed on it.
It's like ready on the bombs these days.
Yeah. It's like, say hi to your mom. It's like nothing has changed. Nothing has changed at all.
Well, that is hilarious. I've never heard that.
Oh, it's great.
Vic says, do you guys remember Arrow Comics doing Wonderland?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. How about you, Rob?
I work with Arrow Comics, but I don't remember that particular book. But it does not surprise me. Randy was trying all kinds of different things, and anything in public domain like that, you can jump on it and do it. Give it a shot. I know we were doing some King Arthur stuff.
Be still my heart.
For some of that. I did.
Anything Arthurian legend, I'm all in.
Yeah, it did. I've got a couple of things that are like that. There's we did a comic book that was supposed to eventually start being a regular series called the Last Knight, Knight, which was a knight who survived the battle that King Arthur was killed in.
Oh,
He was like the only knight of the Round Table that survived. Everyone else was killed. So it's definitely it could have been a really interesting series, but that was a lot of fun to do. It's probably one of the last things I did professionally as a comic book artist, and before I finally said I couldn't get a regular series going, so I I had two. I had a little girl who was about 5 years old, and then another kid in the oven, plus a mortgage to pay. So I had to look for something a little more regular and a little more long term, which is why I'm now able to do everything I can, because I have a pension now to go on.
Yeah, right.
That was one of the last
Hi,
things I
David.
did.
Now.
Doing all that.
Now you're
Hey,
living the
David.
dream. Hey,
Yes, sir. You betcha.
on the
I
close
think-
heels of. Okay.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Prince Valiant was a direct
Yes.
ripoff of Camelot.
Yes,
Uh,
I
absolutely.
just
Arthur.
saw that
Absolutely.
at Barnes and Noble in like an oversized hardbound, and I was
Oh man,
Distempted.
that's beautiful stuff.
Hal
Yeah,
Foster.
There's some great art.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Actually,
Yes.
I have to really rein myself in when I go to a bookstore. It's like 1 or 2 books. That's it. So I got The Hobbit graphic novel. I got it for my
Yay!
nephew. So beautiful. I didn't
Yes,
know
that
I
was
didn't know it was a thing. I saw it. I had to do a triple take. I'm like, what?
that was adapted by Chuck Dixon, right? Who was the
Yep.
artist on
Yes.
that one?
Wenzel.
David Wenzel.
David
Wenzel,
Wenzel. That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that one online too. It's just beautiful. Turn it here. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
you front and center here.
Yeah.
Turn some of the
that's- yeah.
pages. It's very kid friendly art.
Yes. Except for that giant spider.
Giant spider.
Yeah, well,
let's-
but the whole story is supposed to be kid friendly anyway.
Right,
Tolkien
right.
wrote it for his, created the story for his kids. He was telling them, stories at night. And in fact, the story goes that Christopher kept critiquing it because
Really?
every time his dad would retell the story, he'd change stuff. And he says, "That's not how it was last
Typical.
time, Dad."
Typical dad. Typical
You
dad.
know, so
So-
he
so-
finally had to write it all down.
So just like Harry Potter, it started out as a story to his children.
Yes,
Hmm.
exactly.
J.K. Rowling just started it as telling to her children, and she would advance it as her children advanced in years. The books advanced in
That makes
maturity.
sense. That does
Yeah.
make sense. Like it's
Yeah,
darker.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I didn't know that. So
Vic says he saw a single issue format reprint of Prince Valiant. Should have bought. Yep, should have
Yeah.
bought it.
Yeah.
I might go back and get that oversized one. Gosh, that was good.
Do you have any other
It
ones
was
there?
nice. So on the close heels of Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft,
Ooh.
Call
All
of
of
Cthulhu, Mountains of Madness, Herbert West Reanimator, which is like a Americanized Frankenstein. All of them have been made into not only TV shows, movies, video games, graphic novels have done really well with it. And there is a plethora of comic books and graphic novels. Just like we have a plethora of pinatas.
A plethora
I-
of oh god.
That reminded me of something. I'm going to see if I got a copy of it here.
And for
Okay.
an honorable mention, I picked this one up a few years ago at Three Rivers Comic Con. Not quite a direct adaptation, but
Rough
just
Riders.
a bunch of famous figures. You have Annie Oakley, Harry Houdini, Teddy Roosevelt, Tesla back there, Edison, and it's fictitious. Obviously, it looks very steampunk looking, but it
Yes.
it has some of all their character traits are definitely part of their own character. So a lot of true character stuff.
A lot of tidbits about the real people.
Yep.
Well, speaking of doing the classics, they did Fahrenheit 451.
Really?
Which which was a Ray Bradbury approved adaptation. He actually helped with the adaptation, and Tim
Wow.
Hamilton did the artwork. And I've seen it online, and the artwork is just so extremely vivid.
Yeah.
And evocative of the whole, book burning theme and everything like that. I have got to get my hands on that. The other thing I have on my wish list on Amazon, which I want to get, is
You're
The
capping out at
Handmaid's Tale.
$5,000 in books right now.
Yes, yes, I know.
That's what I do.
The Handmaid's Tale. I have the regular book, The Handmaid's Tale, by Margaret Atwood, and I saw online that there is a graphic novel adaptation of it, and I saw some of the pages, and I want this book bad. It was illustrated by Renee Nault, and you can find it on Amazon, and that is an absolute must-have for me. I've got to get my hands on that one. I don't know if any of you have read A Handmaid's Tale.
I have not, no.
But
no.
No.
It's very
No, I haven't.
dystopian. It's
I've heard that.
dystopian future, where it's like an ultra conservative society where they've gone back to the women are only for breeding, and if you're of breeding age, you're put into like this facility where a childless couple or the important men can just order you up like off the menu, and you have to breed for them. It's incredibly dystopian, but I love it. It's a great book. There's a graphic novel. Oh yes, Vic, there is. It's on. Just put in Handmaid's Tale graphic novel in Amazon. It'll pop right up.
Yep.
Illustrated by Renee Nault. It is a must-have. It's on my wish list. As soon as I get enough free money, I'm going to grab it.
Where's that?
Ooh.
Ooh, very
Yeah,
cool.
and-
Now I got to go to Eric.
Yeah.
Show that.
Yeah, and there's the back without the logo on it. It's the same as what's on the cover. But
That's cool.
see if I can find there's one 2-page spread in the middle here that if I remember right. Yeah, here it is.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice. Very
Wow.
Big, right in the middle of the battle.
Look, there's a lot going on, but you can actually follow it. That's
Yeah, it's that's tricky.
yeah, it is. I
That's
can only
tricky to pull
imagine.
off. But yeah,
There's like
that's
hard
what I was
breaks without
talking about.
lines.
I'll have to send you this. I've got several copies of this yet.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to let
Vic
you
says
have
we
one of
haven't
those,
even
Rory.
mentioned Roland's.
Thank you.
We haven't even mentioned Roland's Huck Finn he did for those classics.
Roland did Huck Finn?
I didn't know that. He
I
was
didn't know
talking
that.
about he talked about doing which book? What did he say he did for that Indian company?
Oh.
Was it Oz?
Oz.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
That's
it was Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Yep.
You
It's
still got
unbelievable.
me on
technically,
full
but-
screen there, Barb.
Oh yes.
Oh, we're gonna leave it this
Full
way.
screen.
The whole.
Cheers.
We were trying to talk him into popping in later and telling him what the process was for adapting book to comics.
Mm.
He said if he had some time, he would. So let's hope he does.
Actually, I did a course on that a few semesters ago for one of my English literature requirements. It was it film and literature. It was all about adapting literature to film and back and forth. But the first thing we actually covered was Kafka, and the guy who would like fast in public for days on end. The hunger artist, or the starving artist, the hunger artist, and how he eventually just went to the circus and did like the freak show thing, and it got adapted. We look at two different versions of the comic book version of it. That's kind of dark, and now my professor has changed his whole course load this fall because I gave him the Steam Patriots, and he's like, I've changed my course. It is now film and other visual media. So this fall, I'm going to be going into his class and teaching an hour-long course on it, on like comic books and the whole process.
You're going to teach?
Yeah.
Good for you.
I'm going to have to get a haircut and trim my beard to look more professional or something. Yes, I don't.
Yeah,
just get
the tweed jacket with the leather
with the
leather
patches.
Do
do a little braid. Do a little braid on the beard.
Yeah, a little Viking braid.
I mean, plenty of professors have long hair.
That's true. So I'm looking forward to that. That's really cool. He taught me a lot when we for our final, we had to take a scene out of a book and like do a script, like panel by panel, and we had to draw it out. And so we had
Oh my!
yeah, that was
Is this the one you were talking about?
It's going to metamorphosis, not metamorphosis. No, that's a good one too. Oh,
That's
man,
the one where the guy turns into a bug, isn't it?
What?
That I believe so. Yes, I believe so.
I don't know about that one.
Mm-hmm.
The Kafka
Rob,
story
you have-
where the guy turns into a
Kafka's
bug.
got some strange stuff.
Oh man!
I wonder what kind of
he
shrooms
must
he
have
was
had
doing.
weird nightmares.
Yeah, I will.
Rob, do
find-
you have any books that you have seen that you particularly like in graphic
Well,
novel form?
We've already mentioned the ones that I had picked out to talk about because the Oz the Complete Collection by Eric Schanauer and Scotty Young.
Eric Schanauer. I remember that one.
Yeah, remember? Yeah,
Awesome.
and Scotty Young, and I haven't actually read the thing, but I when I was doing some research for this topic tonight, that came up, and I went, "Wow, that's it." I wish I had a picture of it to show you, but Scotty Young's artwork is very cartoonish and very, very energetic, and so I can imagine that whole book is like that. It would be a lot of fun to read. But that's one that's definitely on the list of good adaptations of a book. Please record your lecture if possible, says Vic. Rory, I guess he's talking.
we can
talking
play it
about-
on Wednesday Wham here, and then I won't have to do anything.
Yes, we
we'll
should
just
play it
do a
and then.
rerun of your lecture. Yes.
Oh no, not a rerun. I want a Rift Tracks MST3K, like just making fun of it the whole time.
Okay.
Solitary
yeah,
Dude
I'll
saying.
do. Yeah. If you need a volunteer, I'll go.
Solitary Dude says, "Did we already discuss Sapiens?" No, we have not discussed Sapiens.
Sapiens?
I'm not sure what that is. Maybe you need to tell us.
Well, I know a guy did a scholarly book about the history of the human race called, I think it was called Sapiens, but I don't know if that's what he's talking about. Because that doesn't sound familiar at all.
Before we came on the air, we discussed some Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff. Tarzan has been done in comics. Conan was the one that we touched base on.
And so has John Carter of Mars.
That one's
that was the
been
first
done.
one, right?
I'm trying to think who else.
Tarzan, Conan,
Yeah,
the Mars series.
Conan was the one that really came up that you really wanted to talk about. But yeah, most of everything that Conan.
It went on for a long while.
That was all short stories, and there's I think there's only one novel that the author did, and I'm blanking on his name right at the moment.
Apparently Sapiens is a graphic novel adaptation of a non-fiction book.
Okay, then I know. Yeah, that's interesting because I've read about a third of that book. It's kind of interesting. It's the history of the human race and how we developed.
History of the World Part 1.
Yeah, that would be a strange graphic novel. Okay, well, I'd have to check that out.
It's done well.
Vic says Rick Rogers' What Became Buck was a book first, correct? I don't know. Was it?
That I don't know. That's quite possible. Wow. Vic knows his comics history.
Also,
yeah.
It probably was.
David, it sounds plausible.
And David says Doyle, which of course, yes, Sherlock Holmes has been in the public domain for quite some time now. Yeah. And as Rob would be the expert on Doyle, perhaps you can expand upon that a bit. Tell him why you're the expert.
Well, as most everybody knows, I'm part of Airship 27, which is a publication partnership I have with Ron Portier, and our best-selling anthology is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And for every single one of those, I'm up to volume 19 right now. I'm working on at the moment. I've illustrated every single one of them on the inside. So we started this about 10 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago. And at that time, there was some question about whether it was public domain or not, whether Sherlock Holmes was. It should have been, but some descendants of Arthur Conan Doyle, every time anybody would try to write a story or do any sort of pastiche or anything involving Sherlock Holmes, they would threaten to sue unless they got a fee. So a lot of movies and a lot of books and stuff got done, and they got paid for it, even though they really did. His family were jerks. Yeah, I wouldn't go quite that far, but they were definitely trying to make money off of the fact that their ancestor had created a character.
Hey, Pops.
And so
Hey, Pops.
eventually, one of the guys that had tried to do some publishing of a Sherlock Holmes story finally said, "To heck with this! I'm going to take it all the way to all the way to court." And eventually, a federal judge finally ruled that Sherlock Holmes was in the public domain, at least up until 1924. And I didn't even realize that Arthur Conan Doyle wrote stories that late into the 1920s. Most of the stories are set in the 1800s, late 1800s, and into the early 1900s. But anything after that, any stories were copyrighted essentially. But those are starting to fall out now. As of this year, anything done in 1924 is now public domain as well. If any stories were written after that, they'll fall into line as the years go by. So Sherlock Holmes is now definitely in the public domain. It has been for about 10 years. But here in the United States, there was some question about it. That the whole thing kind of revolves around the fact that Arthur Conan Doyle actually gave away or sold the rights to some organization, which then folded, and then the family assumed that they had the rights then after that, and there was no one ever fought it until this one guy did about 10, 15 years ago and finally won. So there was, but there's always the claim that, well, that you can't. They also try to use trademark. Sherlock, you can't use. They say that Sherlock Holmes is a trademark. Well, it's not. A trademark is completely different from copyright. You have to constantly battle to keep a trademark. Every time you see somebody try and use something that you have trademarked, you have to battle it in order not to lose it. Whereas copyright, it's there. Period. If you don't fight it, you still have it. But trademark is a whole different deal in that respect. I don't know what the exact laws on copyright are at the moment, but Disney has been pushing back how late they can keep something.
They don't want their
Mickey Mouse
mouse
has
to
finally, Mickey Mouse's first appearance has finally fallen into public domain. Steamboat Willie, which started out as a silent film, and then the sound came into existence, so they had to change it up a little bit, which is why Mickey is whistling out throughout the whole thing so they could do sound. But but Steamboat Willie is now in public domain. But you can't use any other. You have to use the look of Mickey Mouse from that film.
Right.
You can't use any that were done later on because those are copyrighted separately. So again, we're in murky waters again. But Disney has been pushing, using their influence to push back how long a copyright can be held. But even their powers can't stop it forever. The whole idea with copyright and the way, and it's even in the Constitution, which strangely enough, the copyright law is mentioned in the Constitution. Hey, Brent, that it's important that things do eventually fall into the public domain so that people can actually other people can do creative things with it. You can take something that has been created before, make something new out of it. Everything should fall into the public domain eventually.
Adam says there's a really great Time Machine adaptation with artwork by Alex Nino.
Oh, I'll bet that's gorgeous too. He's quite an artist. So, Brent, do you have any favorites of graphic novel adaptations of books, or are you anything like that? Or you've given it any thought?
I gave some thought to it. To tell you the truth, that's not the kind of comics I gravitate to. But I will say this: some of the old Bible classics that were put in comic
I
form.
mentioned those earlier.
Yeah, I remember those as a kid, and that was actually really cool. Just the idea you could see something that before had just been words. I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
the illustrated Bible, I think they called it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it looks like real, like comic art. So I always thought
it's very comic bookish. Yeah, it's sequential art, definitely.
Yeah. Has anyone mentioned Scotty Young's Wizard of Oz adaptation?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason I liked that was, for one, because I saw the trade in a discount bin, and so huzzah! It's really all.
Or
2001, I think, is when it came out.
I think.
Yeah.
The reason I liked it, as for what it was because I think the thing that has always I've found bothered by adaptations is that it is kind of. I almost feel like they are filling in blanks that I never really had. I like reading a book and visualizing it myself, which is why if I ever see a movie based on a book, I won't enjoy the movie unless it is distinct enough and coherent enough for its own right. But if someone was just like, this would be really cool as a movie, and made it so much like the book that then frankly it almost feels like it's muddled to me. I don't like it. This happens a lot, and I feel similarly. I think in comics, like sometimes I've read or I've thumbed through and looked. I remember I saw the adaptation for The Dark Tower in a bookstore, and no, wait a minute, it wasn't The Dark Tower. It was The Stand, and it's one of my favorite books. And when I was looking at the reveal of who I think his name is Randall Flagg, the main bad guy, I remember thinking,
is that all Stephen King?
Scary at all? Yeah, Stephen King did a brilliant job of making him scary, and the comic book panel diminished him. I hated it, and
you can't do a jump cut.
Yeah. Yes, I don't know. It was just so I feel like.
Hey, Tommy.
Yeah. So if I see an adaptation, then I'd be happy if it brought something completely new. And I felt like Scotty Young's book did that. I was seeing illustrations that I had not seen in a movie, not seen in the book. They were quite creative, and I think I just liked it for that reason. So. Yeah.
Flora Monty Flyby says Starship Troopers comic was okay. The movie version kinda.
It was a book first?
Yeah.
What? I grew up with that movie.
Yes. And Vic asks Rob. It says, Rob, weren't you going to do some biblical stuff through Marvel at one point?
At one point, yeah. I guess he's been paying attention.
Well, I guess.
He's got some memory.
Carol Kalish, who was in the promotions department at Marvel, had thought that at one point Marvel should have some throughput in Christian stores. So she was wanting to start a Christian line of comic books, and I was tapped to draw one of them. we talked on the phone, and it was supposed to happen. And then one day she was walking down the street, going back to the Marvel offices, and collapsed in the street and died of a heart attack.
Whoa.
And of course, that whole thing just kind of died on the vine. Now, I read somewhere recently that Marvel actually has been in talks to try and do that again. But I don't know how far that'll go. But that was right near the end of it was in the middle of the implosion that happened when I got stopped doing the Star Trek stuff at Malibu and DC, and it all went over to Marvel, and Marvel said, no, we're not going to use anybody who's ever worked on the book before. Why, I don't know. But
Good John Paul Jones, or not John Paul Jones. John Paul II comic.
Somebody's actually done a comic book of his life. Yes.
It was good. It was good.
I don't think we can talk about books to comics without mentioning Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
He's had the Graveyard book, which was illustrated by P. Craig Russell and a bunch of other people. American Gods has been
started off as a book. Yeah.
It was book first, and it's been done in the graphic form.
Still going?
Coraline.
Coraline. Is that show still going? Because that was popular for a hot minute.
I don't know. I never watched the show.
It was a comic?
Yeah.
No, it was a book first, and then it turned it into a graphic novel. American Gods was also done by P. Craig Russell, Scott Hampton, and
I think I have
Walt
a copy
Simonson.
of some of the early issues of that
Wow.
in my collection somewhere. I'd have to dig and find it. But yeah.
I saw some of the Graveyard book art, and it's obviously, P. Craig Russell, you're just going to get quality work every single time he's involved. But most of his novels, I think, translate awesomely into comic book form.
Well, he thinks visually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a lot about classics. I know Sleepy Hollow has been done.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Anything Washington Irving. But what if it took the last, I don't know, since the turn of the millennium, what is a book that you could translate well to graphic novels, comics?
Probably any of the Terry Brooks fantasies.
The Shannara books.
The Shannara books would translate well. What other ones? Come on, you guys.
Almost anything in the fantasy realm could probably be done that way.
Yeah, I've done well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's always the trick. It's anytime, sometimes it's important to hew very close to what the original story was, and other times it's better to really diverge from it, depending on the type of book it is. Some of them aren't as visual as others are.
The big problem with translating a literary to graphic novel is how to condense.
Yeah.
And still maintain the quality and get the story done, because you just cannot possibly do a graphic novel and do verbatim. It's impossible.
Okay, I got one. Forgotten Ruin is I think it's a 3 or 4 part series. Who's by Jason Anspach. It is a modern military mixed with high fantasy. That these portals start opening up all over the world, and they send these special forces guys through these portals in C-130s because the portals are huge. And so in first book, at least, it's a bunch of Rangers on a C-130 with a couple of other government operators, and they go through the portal, and they have to crash land on this little island in a river. And the first first quarter of the book is them just surviving on this thin island. and they're being onslaughted by orcs and giants and wizards, and they have to like it's like all this like technical military terminology in their 240s, and it was written by a bunch of rangers, so they're a bunch of nerds on deployment somewhere with nothing else to do for a few weeks at a time, and they're like setting up like nests, and 240 just mowing down orcs and stuff. And they have their special group go out and around and like snipe out the wizard and stuff. It's really interesting. Never would have thought military stuff like anything Tom Clancy or the like to meld with high fantasy. But like I'm just to the point of the story where this dark rider comes up to the plane where they have their encampment. He's like, "Yeah, I'm a SEAL, and I got here 3 years ago. They all left Earth at the same time, but and the portals just drop you wherever in the timeline in the future." Really awesome.
You want to hold up your book there for Tommy, who apparently missed the first part of the
the Lord of the Rings
podcast?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yes, Tommy, you need to read that one.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Is it with Tolkien's
blessing?
Well, I mean,
oh yeah, they did a seance and asked him.
The estate. I'm not sure if the estate. I'm pretty sure it would have had to, because this is.
Yeah, Christopher had to sign off on that. Definitely.
Yeah, the script
you can't do
true.
Wait, so the script was adapted or just lifted?
An illustrated edition of the fantasy classic.
Okay.
So is it sequential art or is it page by page? Yeah. Okay. So it's not just it's more than just illustrated. They've adapted it to comic books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Adam says there's some cool Raymond E. Feist adaptations. Cool. And he suggests The Magician's Apprentice.
That would be amazing, Adam. Yes, I would read that.
And Tommy says there are 15 million Frankenstein comics.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Some are better than others.
Mm-hmm.
And Vic says you got half the page count for a graphic novel, so you got to hope and pray it doesn't get screwed up when it's condensed. That's just the whole problem. That is what I'm saying. Is it's a really fine line to walk.
Yeah.
You got to turn out a quality product that gets almost everything across that the literary book does, but in like half of the space.
Most people who like reading comics don't like the slow burn. You need like a pacing to keep them interested.
Yeah, there's got to be action, or when you can't do a lot of talking heads.
Yeah, which is why like the first 1/3 of Lord of the Rings would probably be condensed down into 2 pages.
And they're walking.
But the interesting thing is, if you think about it, that's when you, as the writer and the artist, you have to capture an entirely new vibe. Yeah. Because if you're thinking, I'm going to do a Lord of the Rings comic that's going to capture the vibe that Tolkien had, well, I mean, the journey.
Why not just read the book?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
because the book was the journey. I mean, you spent. You're right. They spent so much time on the road, and yet people loved that. If they didn't, nobody would ever hear of the Lord of the Rings. But they loved that.
Yeah, there was so much talking about the old legends and singing songs and and poetry and that sort of stuff.
Real world building.
So if you were gonna
so many.
And you were like, I'm going to condense all that into 2 pages. I would say don't even bother, because you're not talking about Lord of the Rings anymore. You're talking about something else entirely. So if you were going to do a Lord of the Rings comic, you would have to kind of honor that vibe, but come up with your own.
Strike force.
That's when it might work.
That's pretty good, actually.
That was good. That was pretty good.
Strike fork.
Strike fork.
I love the show Stargate, all of them. I wonder if there's been a graphic novel.
Oh yeah, graphic novels, but comic books. I have.
Are there?
Yeah, there's.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I know Firefly. There's a huge line of.
But those are movies,
novels.
and we're talking about books.
Right.
And TV. Yeah.
Stargate had to be a book first. It had to be. Or at least a script.
I don't know, man. Roland Emmerich, Dean Devlin did the original movie.
Yeah.
Those guys never struck me as being terribly literary. So
no, it was. Yeah.
But they had to do enough research because a lot of the stuff was pretty on point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now, way back a few comments ago, Vic said we were talking about not losing the copyright. That's why he says why Blue Beetle gets a brand new series every few years to keep people from using the name.
Right.
And actually, Silverline has Teen Beetle, which is a knockoff of Blue Beetle. He's using the same serum as Blue Beetle. So yeah, we kind of dipped our toes into the public domain with that one as well.
Cool.
You did not know that? Yeah, Teen
I
Beetle.
want to go find the
But
worst
that's
public domain title.
and that's a trademark thing. It's not a copyright thing, really. Is why they do
or
that.
trademark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
All right. So, Brent, if you were to adapt any book into a graphic novel, which one would you choose?
You know,
If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
I love the Wrinkle in Time series of the
Ooh.
first three.
Mm,
And what's funny is I've never seen it done well,
Mhm.
adapted out of its book form, which then makes me think, well, maybe nobody's giving it the right shot. But then I talk myself out of it, and I think I'm probably pretty smart to do that. So
it has been done in graphic novel form, but I haven't seen it. I just know it has.
well, yeah, that book's pretty spectacular, and I almost feel like
that little bit of that indifference in your voice.
Yes.
I mean, the book is so amazing without adhering to anything that seems like an established structure. I think that's partly why the movie failed. Also, I just didn't know what they were going for, and thematically it was really pretty bland. So if I were to do it, then yeah, I would have to figure out how to make it work for a comic, which sounds like a fun challenge. So
Yeah.
maybe I should do it.
Rory?
Ooh. I'm sure it's been done. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, illustrated the comic book Gold Keys or whoever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Classics
Classics
Illustrated.
that probably would have been the pulp era too, right?
Yeah, but it was right. It was a long time ago, and aesthetics were different. I'd like to see it done
1950s.
again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, something a little more.
And I like that
modern,
whole like League of
with a more
Extraordinary
modern
Gentlemen
sensibility.
thing. Yeah, I mean that
Yes.
I would take winning elements from all of that.
Captain Nemo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to explore with the story.
I agree.
I've been building my library of like the classic novels, and I came home with that book in my head. I was like, I read that when I was 12. I'm like, at 12, okay.
Has anybody turned Johnny Tremaine into a graphic novel?
God, I don't know that one. Johnny Tremaine. What's that one?
Well, well, you should read that one. It's a young adult novel. Takes place in the Revolutionary War.
Revolutionary.
What?
Yes.
Yes, it was
think
one
I
of
read
my
that.
favorite books
Okay,
when I was young.
Spell for me Tremaine.
I never heard of those.
Or
Johnny
Johnny
Tremaine.
Tremaine.
Oh,
Interesting,
yeah.
because
He-
I would have probably loved something like that when I was a
Esther
kid
Forbes?
in elementary
He
school.
was apprenticing under the silversmith, Paul Revere.
Maybe I shouldn't read it because
Oh,
we're,
wow.
we're writing all that.
And he burns his hand really bad, and it
Huh.
doesn't heal right, so he can't do that anymore. So he does spyish things. It's a
Ooh.
young adult novel. You
Okay.
have to read it. I mean,
Okay,
I
yeah, I'll check
absolutely
it out.
adored it. I would love to see that done in comic book form.
Yeah.
Ah.
Read Johnny Spoon. That's a good one. Johnny Spoon got adopted by Native Americans. He was a
No,
white
I've never
boy.
seen that one.
I don't know if his parents were killed or died or something, but he got adopted by the tribe, and like how he was brought up in the West, probably early 1800s. Just wild.
Vic, let's talk Thumbelina.
That's what it's called. Yep. That's what Roland did.
Yeah. Yeah, Tanya was pretty great.
Yes.
Oh, Brent, you did that one?
No, Roland
Oh.
did it with
Okay, yeah, it looked great.
front of hers. Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
sharp. Yeah, did you guys ever see the animated Thumbelina?
No.
Oh man, a long time ago.
I
It
think I
was-
saw it once.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
yeah.
Oh,
once.
vaguely, I think.
Yeah. Again, it was like another adaptation where they didn't know what they were doing. So adaptations are
Mhm.
hard, I think. They just sound really hard.
I want to take the actual Grimm's fairy tales, like that are actually
And do
quite
the
macabre.
Yes. Don't
Yeah.
pretty it up Disney style.
Yep.
Do it straight from the text where
Absolutely.
Cinderella's
Oh, my.
sister cuts off her heel and sticks her bloody
Yeah.
foot in the shoe. Yeah,
Yep.
Has this not been done? It feels like it should have been done.
you would think.
I don't think anybody would take the risk. Put that
I
much
don't know,
blood or
man.
that much macabreness into those stories.
feel like if there ever was a time, it would be now.
We should do it.
Yes.
The anti-Disney has risen, and
Mhm.
we're all just like, no, we want everything to be depressing. So,
But I would like to see it kept
Done
true
well.
to its original form.
Yeah.
yeah.
And Grimm's fairy tales were
They were
grim.
grim.
Well, some of the this is not Snow White, Little Red Riding Hood. They've done that 1,000 times, and they've become progressively darker.
Yeah,
and
the
darker.
wolf actually eats Granny and Little
Right.
Red, and the woodsman cuts the
Cuts them
the,
open.
cuts him open to get Grandma and Little
Doesn't
Red
he-
out. Of course, that's
Doesn't he
crazy.
shove
They'd
like
be dead,
pots
but,
and
you know.
pans into his stomach before sewing them up or something? It was like wild
Something, yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something had to be lost
Yeah.
in translation.
And the Pied Piper,
Yep, that's
actually-
huge.
didn't
What
he
is a
actually kill the
killing
children?
tale?
Yeah,
Didn't he
took 'em
actually?
all away.
He led them to their
stole the
deaths, yes.
children.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
and
played
led
There's
them to their
historic
deaths,
precedence for that. There is
Really?
there's like from the 1400s. There is tales of little small villages in Germany, Austria, where the children are just gone.
What?
Yeah, real weird
Mhm.
stuff.
Huh.
Vic says he drowned them. Yeah, that's what I thought too. He drowned the
Mhm.
children.
Yeah.
Now that's dark.
I
Ran
don't
him off
know.
a cliff like lemmings.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I
Yep.
thought he just led him to another place, which almost seemed worse. I don't know.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that was. I was like, I remember the first time reading this and going, I am a kid reading this, and this is not for me.
I remember reading it and being like, "Hey, I kind of get it, but I don't get it."
Yeah,
Maybe that's good.
yeah. I don't know.
We are kind of coming to. We're in the last 3 minutes of our podcast here. Rory, did you want to say anything about your book, the Kickstarter? Have they shipped
Oh
yet?
yes, I don't think they've shipped yet. I think 90% of people have responded to the Kickstarter call to give us your name, address, and all that stuff. How you want your name to be listed in the Kickstarter?
Yep.
And
I filled mine out.
Good, excellent. Got to check out my brother. I don't know if he did it right. The family. You got to hold hands a little bit. That should be shipping next month, I believe. So soon,
Mhm.
within a few weeks. And we did very well. We're very pleased with our turnout.
Yeah, you guys did great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Vic asked if they've been printed yet.
Tommy, are you here? Tommy? Yeah.
Tommy's
think-
still going on and on about Starship Troopers, I think.
Yeah. Writing a dissertation.
It's usually about between the time that the Kickstarter ends. It's about 3 weeks before we get the money from Kickstarter.
The funding. Yeah.
And then it's about another week or so for the printing process. And then BJ and Roland have to start packaging. And of course, it also depends on if they got art. It's got to
Right,
be packaged up too. And if we've gotten everything from
Yeah,
the
each-
artists to pass on.
Yeah.
You know,
Each package is different. So
Yeah.
it's done by hand. So a lot
Okay.
of time. A lot of time.
I think we're going to wrap this up then. So if everybody wants to say their ending, let's make mine Silverline.
Silverline.
Hi, I'm Bill Black. I created FemForce. But you know what? Today, make mine Silverline.